All right, I want to thank everybody for their patience. I was a bit late. I was waiting for a communication, and communications from the Federal Housing Commissioner. This is all regarding disability. So sometimes I don't always get information as quickly as I need it. That's why yesterday's video was delayed. The most important thing is we're able to get the most up-to-date information regarding disability and qualification rolling into 2026 if Congress is able to approve the new rules and issue funds to the state, which means we'll be moving from a federal system to a state system to receive vouchers. And it's important you guys have accurate information regarding disability. For those that were impatient and left, well, tough shit. Things happen. I'm here at my own free will. Nobody's paying me here to be here, but I care enough to get this information to you guys. All right, so that being said, let's go over standards, both at federal and state. Look, whatever edict the state gives, it's going to be on the basis of federal. Okay, and for you guys that are trying to elude or avoid a 2-year term limit as they roll it out next year with work requirements, this is going to tell us how that may potentially happen. First thing first, I want to address one singular comment. One person chimed in a comment section suggesting that the disability, the family composition, must include a person that's related. That is not true. Okay, there's not been a determination on that. Housing vouchers can be anybody that's in the family composition that's renting and under that voucher. You don't need to be a blood relative. To do so, to suggest so, would suggest that you also would need to throw your adopted children out the window and so on. Okay, so you can't just, that's imaginative. So I need a lot of you guys to quit trying to consult and advise inside the comment section if you don't really know anything. Okay, just being honest, because it's dangerous to trade misinformation. All right, so according to the feds and Federal Housing Commission, I'm going to provide a link for that because I'm going to have a few naysayers. They require DNA sample every time I have to read something, and so I will provide that evidence in this video when I get a moment. Okay. All right. So under number 1, housing disability is defined as 42 USC 423, inability to engage in any substantial gainful activity by reason of any medical determined physical or mental impairment that can be expected to result in death that has or will be lasting or can be expected to last for a continuous period of 12 months. Since most of you are not looking to, you're looking at disability, most of you are not going to be terminal, so I do not believe that number 1 is going to be the big answer for a lot of you, okay? What I do believe is as we move on to 2 and 3, they will. But let me read part B. In the case of an individual who has attained the age of 55 and is blind, has the inability by such reason of blindness to engage in substantial gainful activity requiring skills or abilities comparable to those of any gainful activity which he or she is previously engaged in any regular period or substantial time period. I know I'm going to break all this down, so you don't need to get on me about this, okay? And also, for the purpose of definition, the term blindness. Acute vision 20 or 200, 20/200. So that speaks again to those that are blind or have visual acuity problems, okay? Now let's get on to the part that's going to be relevant for the most part of this video. Has a physical, mental, or emotional impairment that is A, B, or C. Is expected to be a long continued and indefinite duration. B, substantially impedes his or her ability to live independently, and is such a nature to the ability to live independently could be improved by more suitable housing conditions. Before we move on to C, let's discuss what that really means. Those of you that have diagnosis, both mentally or physically, that impede your ability, and I want to be very clear, that would impede your ability to live independently. So you need one person that would need, those of you with care aids and such and so forth that have a disability. Now, another distinction I'd like to make while we're talking about this is the definition required by HUD, one federal agency and also state. That is the standard at the U.S. Department of Housing. You do not necessarily need to apply for and receive disability to be determined disabled. A person with asthma can be determined as long-term. There have been several lawsuits that allowed many mental illnesses, including schizophrenia and bipolar. As many of you know, through the 80s and 90s, many family physicians, within a few questions, would write people Prozac and determine they were bipolar. It's not that hard. Anybody with a medical DMX could potentially walk into any doctor's office, describe the symptoms of bipolar, and thus be treated for it, and thus you're disabled. I'm not asking or telling anybody or advising you to go out there and create mental illness, but it would seem to me that if these are the requirements to elude work requirements in a 2-year wait, then if you've got these problems, then there's a high potential. Physically speaking, here's an interesting story. It's sued in this case law out of San Francisco. An attorney became homeless due to drug addiction. However, through homelessness and not being able to get services, and through disability because of slipped disc in her back, crushed disc, or whatever you may call it, L1, L2, and L3, I believe. Well, they picked on the wrong person. This lady obviously had practiced law, so she took it all the way up to the state Supreme Court, and my determination is now anybody with a back problem that's related to disc and long-term care of those discs where you're unable to move adequately and pain and suffering from disc-related issues. You can thank that homeless lady that was a former attorney in San Francisco for that being an automatic disability. Now, again, what we're discussing here is not whether or not these disability factors will earn you a check. Just because you get a determination that you're disabled under the Urban Department of Development and Housing doesn't mean you're going to hop on the phone line with Social Security Administration, a different federal agency, and go get a free check. That's not necessarily going to happen. The standards are much, much higher, okay? So it's important to understand we're talking about qualification both through direction of DOJ, HUD, and HUD to qualify potentially at both federal and state level, okay? Now, that being said, let's move on to C. Now, I'm going to answer your questions, guys. Just be patient. Has the developmental disability? Look, guys, to break this down, those of you that suffer from ADD, you probably hit a gold mine, okay? A is attributable to mental or physical impairment, and the combination of mental and physical impairments is manifested in a person before the age of 22, is likely to continue to be indefinite, and would be an issue to their 1, self-care, receptive and expressed language, learning, mobility, self-direction, capacity for independent living, and or economic self-sufficiency. That practically fucking covers every American that I know. Now, the question is, will your doctor sign off on that? So the reality is this administration, including Mr. Trump, is going to have to do a whole lot more work to limit what we define as a disability to wrangle 1 million people into homelessness or a 2-year voucher, because federal rules do state at a very low level what disability is defined as. And to be frank with you, anybody with $5 in a free clinic could probably become disabled if they put enough self-interest in the diagnosis and the doctor was a big enough fool. Okay, so that's one reality. And again, I'm not encouraging unethical and unmoral behavior or for you to even break the law, but it is, if you lead the horse to water and it drinks, then what can you say? I've always understood the system in Title 24, policy and procedure is simply this. If you know that you're going to play a game and it's rigged, you might as well just play to win. Okay? If you know the game is rigged, then all parties are apprised, right? So you better just play to win. So the reality of it is there are thousands of causes in which a person becomes determined disabled. I would much rather see many of you have invite a disabled or a senior or a veteran in your home than to have you go on a lie at $5 at a free clinic about your bipolar syndrome that you don't really have. Remember, diagnosis is based off what you say. If the doctor believes that you're characterizing the symptoms of mental illness and you're willing to take a 10-cent Prozac, then sufficiently you could be disabled. Okay, those use albuterol and all that, and asthma. So there's a lot of causes. Not every doctor's going to want to sign off on that, but many just don't give a damn. You pay them, and that's that. So again, I'm not advocating for anybody to commit fraud. I'm just suggesting that with every great policy and every great edict from the executive level, there's always a way around things. Okay, I made an entire career of this, getting people around a system that really was designed to damage them, to further victimize. And to be honest, many of you have already been rinsed through. You go in with nothing, many do, and you're already a victim in one way or another. Then you get victimized by the very housing authority and its workers. And then you realize you're dealing with a system that's further going to victimize you. So to be frank with you, it's like being raped 3 times before you even get through it. And then you're asked, if you're a rape victim, you're being asked to wait a decade in order to get a voucher. The rules are now going to be changing in terms of 2-year limits for many of you that are not a senior, and so on. And so now you're being asked that, hey, we'll give you help for just a little bit, but after that, tough shit is your problem. We live in a world where you have to do what you have to do. Many people understand that for what it is, especially in other countries where there is not a system in place to help with housing. I'm a strong advocate of keeping people housed, because with housing comes the ability to be employed, and with employment is the ability to pay taxes. And with those 3 things in place, it means stability for everybody, and it means a whole lot less death in the world. There are many people that will never hear this video, or many that have made, or many that other people have made, that may go on to end their life because it becomes too inconsequential, too difficult to survive this system. They're unprepared or unable, or even intellectually unable to survive in a system that's so brutal. We're adding these new rules. The goal here is to understand what the rules say, and if your case doesn't match that, then you need to work on it. As I say to many of my clients, if you're not legally blind on a Monday, we'll figure out how you will be by Friday, if permissible under law, and we're not lying, cheating, stealing, or violating the law. Okay? Let's get on back to the core questions here, because I'm sure you guys are going to hammer me with that. Good morning, Sheila Neal. Thank you for your kind words. Sheila Davidson, hello. Scott Jones, hello. Psalm 91 says hello. Happy says hello. Jennifer Buckner, hello, everyone. Lisa, thank you for all the information. Nose 144 gives me a bunch of butterflies and suns. Double C, glad to be here. I have a question. Please do ask. Happy, thank you for all what you do. It happens if you have a voucher in which a landlord owns the property. Do we have to apply again? Now, it would seem to me that under new policy, after congressional approval, you would be transitioning from a federal-based voucher to a state voucher, okay? Likely just a change of applications. Not too much to that, but we're being subjective because we don't have the absolute rules just yet. Happy, I'm a senior citizen. Well, you're good to go. If you're 62 years or older, you have a disability check, you have a high potential that you would match a disability through mental health, through learning disabilities, or otherwise, you've got a pretty good chance. If you're a veteran, you're pretty much going to be guaranteed. Amy McNeil, how can I get help for me and my 16-year-old son when we are on the way to being homeless? I'd say reach out to my office, Amanda, because let me explain something about homelessness. Between the ages of 16 and 26, I was homeless for 10 years. Saw the worst of it. Went under the bridge where people watch people smoke crack, drink beer, everything. I'm way out of it. And through a very long career, I have spoken, advocated for the homeless as a primary source. So my message to you is, like many things, it only takes a moment to become homeless. It will take years to unwind that shit. The farther and closer you guys get to homelessness, the much harder it is to get back up, because once you lose everything, all that has to be rebuilt. Not only that, but you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to be at the liberty of people that will indenture you, like homeless shelters and all their shitty rules. Hey, we want you to have a job, but look, you can only go to a job on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays after you've given 45 hours of cleaning of our building. And they put all these rules to make it impossible. In other words, people indenture. It's easier to solve problems before you reach homelessness. Digging out of that, my office on average spent about a half a year trying to drag a person out of a homeless shelter. And to date, we dragged, I think with all clients considered, probably a little over 10,000. Some out of the car, some out the woods, some off the sidewalk, some out of drug addiction, and others out of shelters. And then there's a few part-timers that touched the shelter because the family had enough of their shit, and they still need rescuing. I see it all as the same thing. It wouldn't matter if you're a prostitute, if you're addicted to heroin, living in the woods because you have your own ideas about things. If you need help, you need help. What I won't support is helping people into housing while they have active addictions or actively breaking the law. You have to give that up if you're going to move forward. And if you're dealing with mental health, then it's time to start evaluating what your options are going to be. You can be batshit crazy on the sidewalk, or you could take a couple of pills and get treated and find your way into housing, and then you can quietly be batshit crazy with a key and a lease, okay? It's okay to have mental illness. I've got lots of people in my family got problems. It is what it is. We're humans. Hell, it's surprising that most people don't have a mental illness, considering the number of things we deal with as a human from the day of birth. Just the stress of knowing you can be homeless is enough to produce almost bipolar symptoms. Stress is murderous. I don't know why they don't consider it a mental health crisis, but stress can kill people. Okay, I sympathize. Caleb says, does it include children with? Yeah, autism absolutely is an automatic qualifier. Amanda McNeil, how can I get it from you? Okay, I'm sorry to answer that. Sheila Neal, hello everyone. Hit the like button. Psalm 91. I was diagnosed with bipolar 2. Okay, so there's several different ones on there. As long as you're cleared as bipolar, then you're okay. For disability under housing, does not mean you're going to go run and get a Social Security check from the Social Security Administration. Disability rules are different. For the Social Security Administration to get a disability check, and what we're discussing, a different federal agency, HUD and state agencies have a much lower standard. Okay, moving on from there. Let's see. Can't afford to move because I need funds. Well, you face the same problem roughly 1.1 million people face right now. And I'm throwing out that number based on what I have seen across the news. It has not been confirmed. Doing nothing means a lot to me. I don't know why you'd say that, but Psalm 91, I have ADD, can't do anything. I understand. Psalm 91 is I've been on psych meds. Look, guys, I don't mind discussing psychiatric matters, but the public platform is not the place probably to do so for privacy matters. And it would certainly be against what I do to share in that behavior. Okay, guys? You can bring up mental health and diagnosis, but we cannot get into describing what the mental health issues are. Okay, Amanda, you're awesome. Thank you for what you do. Freedom, I am 65 years old, retired Army veteran. Even with that comment right there, Freedom, you're fine under the new system that may take place for 2026. But you go on to say a proof of VA Section 8 voucher 55 will apartment. I live with a chance of losing that next year. You won't lose it. You'll be transitioning to something new under the VA system, okay? But you're at no material risk. Psalm 91, what about being an appeal for disability? Okay, again, guys, this being disabled and being approved for disability payment are two different things. You only need to be determined disabled under HUD, okay? It has nothing to do with whether or not you get a check. I have got to struggle with that a lot, no matter how many times we bring that up. Kayla, does disability extend to children in the household? To be clear, disabilities extend to every human in the family, okay, from the day of birth till expiration. Children matter, their lives. The children are born, they receive a Social Security and birth certificate. They're humans. So you're good. What you cannot do is have your pet fucking rooster become disabled, okay? The pet rooster will not save you. I hate to be so abrupt, but really, I know some people are going to try, oh, well, what about my cat? Well, look, it's time to get psychiatric help if you're trying to get your cat to be the second disabled member of your house. There will be no roosters, no chickens, pigs, or otherwise, okay, guys? Let's try to keep things normal here in the chat. Otherwise, you're gonna get me started, and then I'm gonna start acting like somebody from South Louisiana, and you're not gonna like how I speak. All right, so Lisa, this goes on. I'm blind, and my 2 sons are autistic. We depend on a living caregiver and getting 2 extra bedrooms. Okay, Lisa. Well, that sounds like you need an accommodation requested, or to keep the circumstances that you have. You're having a problem or question regarding that, you might want to reach out to our office. By the way, my office is section8consulting.com. We work in all 50 states with clients. We service around 22,000 plus over the years, 25 years, 26 years this summer. We're by appointment. Clearly, I'm not free, but I'm certainly not expensive either. TIS. So if you're 65 and you have a voucher and you are in an apartment now, your federal voucher will turn into a state voucher. Well, you'll be requested. The federal funds are going to go to the state. The state's going to want to have a conversation with you, and you're going to submit your application to convert your voucher from a federally funded voucher through your housing authority to through a federally funded state voucher. So we're talking about a difference of an application, 15 minutes of your time. Lisa, will we be able to keep our 4-bedroom voucher? Now, we don't know. Let's put it this way. If the state is going to be collecting funds from the federal government and issuing vouchers rather than housing authorities, then likely whatever you guys have in terms of accommodations and modifications and voucher allowances will likely remain the same. How it might change is if you move, because not every PHA, you can go down there with a laundry list of all kinds of accommodations. Doesn't mean the next county or state's going to want the voucher you've got. But I would imagine under federal rules, if you've been approved at the federal level under federal funding, you'd like to keep whatever you have. The circumstances of the 4-bedroom house are deemed as proven. Those that qualify, does your household qualify for the 4 bedrooms? And what were the reasons were? And if those reasons still qualify under state rules, then yes. Housing authorities at any time, even when the accommodation, can reject any of it if they don't have the funding. Okay? So the answer is yes, but no if you change something. Impotent says, anyone here seeking private ownership, accepting Section 8 in Georgia? Okay, so apparently that's an advertisement. Psalm 91, I have sub-housing, will I get a voucher? There's no way for me to materially determine that, Psalm 91. If you want to present your case to my office, then I'll let you know, but how would I know that? I don't have a crystal ball here, and I certainly can't read anybody's mind. I don't know anything about your case, Psalm 91. All right, guys, so in terms of disability, if you qualify under a learning disability, mental health, bipolar, schizophrenia, and many of which are on the books, even there are 2 forms of depression, access number 1, access number 2. If you're depressed and you get depression number 2, which is long-term depression, that would be a qualifier for being disabled under housing. Again, please don't call that a Social Security Administration and think you won the lottery. Yes, I like my check, please. No, you're not going to get one for that. But under housing, you would still be considered disabled, but different set of rules. My office does not handle matters of Social Security and disability checks, okay? This is strictly in terms of disability and housing. Let me give you some advice, guys, in terms of talking about disabilities with physicians and medical providers. Make it very clear before you even get into your conversation about disability that you're discussing it in the format of receiving housing. Okay? Make sure the doctor understands you're not trying to subpoena them in the court. You're not going to waste their whole day. Because half the reason most doctors don't want to do this is sign up on disability issues is because they believe that you're trying to pursue a check, which will require them to shut down their entire practice and have to go sit in court for a lengthy process, and no doctor wants to do that. So starting your conversation with your therapist, your physician, or medical provider, saying, look, I'm not after any check. You're not going to be subpoenaed. We're not going to court. There's not going to be lawyers. This is simply about receiving a housing voucher in a simple form. I'm not going to be using this information to go apply for a disability check. That's the best way to unrelieve your medical provider and get them to open up and help you out, okay? But if you don't tell them this is about specifically housing, then their presumption will be the other. And to be frank with you, that's why a lot of doctors want to fool with this. If a doctor's making $20,000 a day seeing to paint patients, you walk in there and you just slap a disability form in front of them. Their presumption is, okay, this guy, the court isn't going to pay that doctor anything to be there. So make sure you're clear about this with your medical professional. You run out there and decide you're going to become disabled, or that you're disabled as some factor, okay, in order to avoid this 2-year term limit in these work requirements. Okay, again, you guys need to practice, use good morals and ethics here. This video is not about defaulting the system. I'm only suggesting that it may be stretched to the limit in which Congress had an inability to design better rules. Okay, you can't hate a person for knowing where a loophole is. Part of my job of getting people through a broken system is understanding where those holes are and walking them through it. If Congress doesn't like it, then they need to write better fucking rules. Simple as that. Just like the person who gets off with murder. The reason he got off is because the law wasn't ready. Can't hate on that. If it's not on the books, it's tough shit. That's it. That's my job. If it's not on the books, then hey, I'm going to do it. But I will not do it. I will not help people defraud the system. Okay? We got too many seniors and real disabled. We need to get through this. What we don't need is a flood of people that are bipolar. Okay? So I don't want my video to be interpreted in that manner. I'm just suggesting if you're struggling with mental health, you're struggling with your ADD, you're struggling with back problems or other health ailments, and you believe by practicality that it's affecting your whole day, then you may really be disabled under housing. If you're not sure about it, reach out to my office. We can discuss it. I'll provide the federal forms for you. And then when state picks it up next year, 2026, we'll go through it again there. That's the best way to do it. I can't really teach you how to do this because if I teach it on here, then I'm teaching both the con artists as well as the people that genuinely need it. And I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to link up the information that's required for you guys. I'm only going to give you the basic form under federal rules. That way we don't get ourselves in trouble. This will be form 90-103. The rest of the information, you have to reach out to my office. But like I said, I'm not going to assist in any factor of fraud over here. Okay? Links coming up. Look at your live chat. That's a long-standing form. This is nothing new. Okay? We'll be adding to that at the state level as soon as it's presentable and ready. This form comes from the Federal Housing Commission. There are DOJ standards as well, and so there's a distinction between many of them, but I believe that many of you. So again, in 2026, as the executive level and Donald Trump determined to get approved through Congress, that all federal funding will now be divided up and issued to the states, and the states will determine what they do with federal housing money. At that point, those that are seniors, disabled, and veterans can potentially receive a voucher that does not have a time restriction. The rest of you that do not have a senior or veteran or a disabled person that's qualified in the home will can apply and receive a 2-year voucher one time. Once that's over, and you will have work requirements. Once that's over, that's the end of it. It's important to understand that housing and vouchers in the beginning were designed to be a temporary solution. They were not designed to be like in New York, where you've got 3 generations of family inheriting and handing down vouchers. This is not a game. That's called fraud. It's been allowed to go on because HUD's never been funded well enough. They can only detect problems usually a couple of years after it's happened. That's why a lot of housing authorities that have become insolvent and stole all the money, didn't pay anything, don't get caught till years later, because there's simply not enough people to investigate things till years after. That's what makes it difficult. Since the executive level in Trump has terminated roughly 90% of all HUD employees, there's not anybody left to investigate anymore, anything. Not without waiting 10 years, probably. There's still OIG, HUD OIG, of course, for misconduct. But I would imagine in most housing authorities around the nations are likely now out of money, facing insolvency, will likely have to sell their real estate portfolio without funding, which is drawing to its last nickel at this point. I've seen a lot of housing authorities in the news that are saying they've frozen money. That's the last lifeline to save something that's dying. I do not see states receiving this money and wanting to sit here and manage 50 to 90 different housing authorities around the state. Most states already have infrastructure in place to accept federal funds and issue their own vouchers. They do not need the assistance of the housing authority, and it would be ill-advised considering the high level of A, fraud, B, the inability of housing authorities to do an adequate job, and the sheer conflict of interest to accept federal dollars and burn up roughly half the money and only use the other half to give out vouchers. States receiving it have no vested interests. Thus, any monies they receive will likely produce a voucher, which would double the amount of vouchers on the market for roughly half the money. You see, when you eliminate the moneymaker of the housing authority, how do you think they buy all these buildings, project-based housing? They don't buy it because they open up their wallet and pay it out of their bank account because they're a good business. This is all generations of money they've sucked out of the federal government. That game is over. Donald Trump is killing that. He has killed it. No money for the housing authority, that's the end of it. Some housing authorities will survive simply because they're in big cities and they're state-owned. That's just the reality. It's likely to happen in places like New York, Los Angeles, and a few other cities, but most other housing authorities, likely this will be an end game for them. We'll know, and we don't even need to wait till special elections. I'm closely monitoring the balance of the House, and politically speaking, if Republicans do hold enough seats in the House by next year, early summer, that's game and match. Okay, nobody make no distinction. They'll approve the agenda, and that's the end of it. That's all what we're waiting on. So, guys, if you have questions or comments, please do so here. Do keep in mind we have a lot of questions and comments in a lot of my videos. And for the first time in probably 15 years I've made videos, we're receiving so many comments that I can no longer personally answer them. The questions become so complex that I had to spend 20 minutes each, and it would take me roughly 4 years to answer just the questions that have been asked so far over the last couple of weeks. So I advise just reach out to all of us, book an appointment if you want to. If you have a serious issue, I can certainly try to address that. My office deals with housing authorities, discrimination, harassment, issues related to getting vouchers and housing, dealing with the federal system, state system, policy, procedure, data manuals. It's a splendora, trust me. We're also keeping close contact with both state and federal agencies that preside over potential new rules. We're also examining the current infrastructure of all 50 states individually to see what type of voucher system they have in place. For example, California does not have its state does not have a infrastructure for a voucher system yet. Other places like New York do. So we're looking at that to see how adaptable that'll be and what policies and procedures they already have based on federal law, so I can get a good idea about how most of you are going to transition if this were to take place after special election and Republicans do continue to hold the House and approve Mr. Trump's agenda, which thus far has been pretty rock solid. I think we probably only have, in my personal and professional opinion, only about a 4 to 6% chance that all this won't happen. I'm fairly certain it all will. Again, personal and professional. All right, moving back to comments. Infinity Life, I'm not advertising. Good for you. I'm glad you're not advertising. Amanda, do we need a caregiver to qualify for disabled or HUD? No, that's not a requirement. If you want a caregiver, you can get a termination disability just simply by being disabled. It doesn't have to be with a caregiver, though it does further your case, but you don't need that extra. Kingdom Child's moments, what I missed. You missed a lot. You missed probably 35 minutes of me speaking. I can talk a long time. Give me 3 beers and I can really, your ears will go numb. So be glad that I'm not drinking. All right, guys, that being said, I'm going to go back over disability as a recap here for you guys that joined us late. I'm only going to speak on 2 policies that are at federal and state level. Make sure I got it all here. And no, I don't have this memorized. I have enough stuff in my mind after all these years. All right, so the inability to engage in any substantial gainful activity by reason of any medical determined physical or mental impairment that can be expected to result in death. Number 1, in the case of any individual who's attained the age of 55 and is blind or inability to reason with such blindness. 2, moving on from there, has a physical, mental, or emotional impairment that is expected to be long continued and in indefinite duration. Look, there's lots of things that can't be, including asthma and bipolar. Has anybody seen anybody get on national news and declare that we have now solved bipolar, schizophrenia, and crushed disc, back problems, or even asthma? Has anybody come back, including Jesus, hitting the earth, and say that they've solved this? Then you would likely qualify under Section 2. Has developmental disabilities defined by Section 1027 U.S. Code, Developmental Disabilities Assistance and Bills Right 42 FC, is attributed to mental or physical impairment, combination of mental health or physical impairments, a combination, it does say, manifested before the age of 22, is likely to continue to be indefinite, may include self-care, receptive or expressive language, being able to speak properly. Number 3, your learning, ADD, mobility, moving, wheelchairs, walkers, broken foot, missing arms, missing legs, limbs, capacity for independent living, depressed, can't get dressed, can't take a shower, doesn't want to feed itself. You understand? Economic self-sufficiency. I've got a house, but I've got no rent to pay. Thus, I will be homeless, or I may choose to have a mental illness that could cause suicide. This gives about 108 different exceptions to where a person could potentially be defined as disabled under housing at both federal and state level. If you have more questions than that, just reach out to my company. Mellow Soul just got here. My elderly mom received Section 202 but wants to transition to Section 8. You know the differences between the code you're reading or Code of Federal Regulation. Code of Federal Regulation, subsection 8, which you guys frequently call Section 8, and subsection 8 of Federal Code. And she's already in subsection of Federal Code 202, which is funding for seniors with disabilities, okay? You guys think this is tax law. It's not. It's housing law, but it's still Code of Federal Regulation. Moving on from there, Pam, I'm disabled senior. It's Pam, and I'm disabled senior, California, and still obtain an emergency housing voucher for 2026. I don't even think there's anybody wanting to issue a voucher, much less the funding, but there's some high potential in some of the larger states. Since I have not verified that factor in any way, at the congressional or executive level, that the funding has been expended, then there is a potential for it. PLRR 86. Okay, we already been over that. 10. Tina Hogan. Will mothers that have children with autism diagnosed? Yes. Look, autism is considered long-term. It cannot be healed, cannot be fixed. It can be managed, okay? So that is a disability. I hope that helps you. Well, guys, I don't want this video to be long. I wanted to establish and prove off the cuff that, in fact, many of you could be declared disabled with relatively unlife-changing effects. Number 2, because of humility and pride that many humans have, you don't fundamentally believe you have a disability, but if I were to describe the federal law that matched that disability, you probably would. So lack of knowledge and an ignorance to code of federal regulation could be another cause for you. That's why I always tell you guys, contacting my office, getting an appointment is the best way to determine what your case is and whether or not you're going to have problems. We do casework. It ain't for everybody. I'm a last resort and last option. Consultants are not needed for anything. Let me be clear. You have other options. You got lots of free options. You can reach out to your housing authority and see if they answer the phone. You can reach out to 211 or 311 and talk to the people there that will Google an answer for you. You may talk to HUD and its remaining 10% employees if they pick up the phone or answer the mail anytime this year or next, okay? Beyond that, you have housing consultants, and beyond that, you have attorneys. My office is a combination of me. We use an attorney, well, we use several, because we deal with a lot of law firms that don't practice the same federal code. Isn't it interesting how attorneys, they're experts in their areas, right? But they don't generally practice any type of federal law or state law where they know clients don't have money. I guess that's called good business. But in terms of what my office does, well, since I don't require a lot, I don't mind practicing any part of the law, or at least suggesting it to clients and determine the outcome of the case, because somebody's got to help people. Also, you have the options of legal aid, people that just got their law degree out the bubblegum machine. They may not know anything, and they may end up pushing you out on the sidewalk and then apologizing for it, but they're worth at least 15 minutes of laughter. Now, there are some legal aid societies that are headed by really good attorneys, and the legal aid society is especially careful, but in most cases, the legal aid society just really intervenes only when people are affected. They don't really handle other matters, but I'm aware of it. I know that because if you guys go in my channel, you'll see that I spoke before several different legal aid societies and instructed their attorneys. So if I'm good enough to instruct an entire legal aid society and its attorneys, I'm good enough to be here, and I won't be second guessed or questioned about it. Okay? That comes with the territory. Moving on from there. Man, y'all guys are going from sentences to paragraphs. All right, so Jennifer Buckner, so it begins down to redetermine where I stay. I ask how long I've been disabled. Well, you're 63, you're over 62, you're fine. Carla says, thank you. Kiki, I like that name. And don't take offense to this, Kiki. I call many of you know I rescued cats. At one point, I had over 33 of them. I only have 5 now, but I call my males Kikis and I call my females Chi-Chis. Now, they have personal names, but I'm only bringing this up because when you're trying to feed a herd of cats, you don't really want to call out 33 names. So I learned about Kikis and Chi-Chis. It's a quick way to get the whole crowd in to eat, because I'm not going to spend all day being a soup kitchen, which means I have to open a treat at 33 different times a day. You see the point? Anyway, I thought y'all might find that funny at the very least. All right, moving on. PLR 86 pen. Okay, so that's you guys talking amongst yourself. Oh, by the way, I'm a pet lover, so I don't just help people get housing. I very much love cats. I don't deal with dogs because the cats would protest that. Tay, thank you. Well, thank you. Mrs. 30, hello, anything on New Jersey? I don't know the reference of the question. We don't have anything on any state just yet. We are developing a website to cover rules, policies, and all for every single state in the U.S. It's a massive undertaking to understand the rules, policies, and procedures for state level vouchers for 50 states. It's putting an extreme amount of stress on my office because the way the system is changing is no longer at a national level, it's at a state level, become a state level, and that requires an extreme amount of reading on my part and a whole lot of work, okay? You wonder why I'm late for videos? Well, that's part of it. I have to spend a lot of my time reading. All right, Faith says, I apologize late, but I wanted to ask, does every person in the house have to be disabled? No. The household or the family composition only requires a person that is age 62 years and older as of now. That could change. A person that is deemed disabled from age day 1 of birth all the way to the end of life or the potential to be a veteran. We don't have anything. Donald Trump is not the executive level, nor states have commented about veterans. Veterans, I know, will be covered under this plan, but it's going to be in a separate category under VA. Still trying to get that, so it tells me the administration is still trying to determine. I would imagine that he'll give greater preference to veterans than virtually all others. And so we're waiting on that information. So for now, I'm including all veterans and no time limits. Lois Rochling, could you tell me what is the difference between HUD and Section 8? Well, HUD is the federal agency that receives federal funds from the approval of Congress. Section 8 is a code from about 50 years ago. So if you go into Cornell Law, you go to Title 24, subsection 8, you can read all about it, okay? It's a subsection of federal code. You guys have been talking about the same old numbers so long, you don't even realize it's federal code. It's a law, okay? That's what it is. You guys refer to everything as Section 8, but it's not. The reason if I had a choice, I would have named my company Federal Housing Consultant, but nobody looks that up. They look up Section 8. Refer to everything. Oh, well, I live in a subsidy Section 8. I've got a voucher Section 8. I've got a Section 8 problem. No, you don't. Read Section 8. It's not about these things. But since everybody calls it Section 8, we just stuck with it. That's how I became Section8Consulting.com, because you guys wouldn't look up anything else on the internet. Antonio, understood, fam. Okay. Now, I've got a person with a name that I simply do not even know how to say. So, S-E-N, Senate Tawali, I believe. Hello, does HCV affect me and my son with autism? So you're asking whether or not the housing choice voucher will affect you. Okay, the question doesn't mean, I'm not understanding in what context you mean that. You might want to reach out to my office. Tim Hogan, I really appreciate the fact that you take the time out of your day to keep the public informed. You are sharing very valuable information. One thing that I want to say is, these videos, you know how much YouTube pays? I mean, first thing they do is they give you a check, right, for all the ads you guys watch. So they take that check, they cut it in half. They keep 49%. When they get ready, now I'm a housing channel. I'm not a 12-year-old with hot purple hair riding my bicycle receiving millions of views. For all my efforts and thousands of hours and over 1,000 videos, I've received little more than 300 a month. You think that's reasonable compensation, or I'm just simply here because I give a shit? That's why. Well, that and I advocate for my company and for those as a last resort that need extra help. Okay, so 2 reasons. I'd be dishonest if I say I wouldn't. I do advocate for my company. But these videos, the 1,000 plus, and keep in mind, YouTube removes 200 or 300 of my videos every year. If it doesn't hit enough to make YouTube money, one year they killed 200 of my videos because it wasn't making them enough money. So I'll never truly know how many I ever made. I've never kept track of it. So the compensation after YouTube's take half is $300. So I'm here because I care. And because I'm trying to prepare you for the high potential that Congress will approve 2-year term limits with work requirements, and that veterans, seniors over 62, and those that are deemed disabled under federal and state housing policy won't have those limits. That's why I'm here. And to help you understand policies, procedures, and rules, and the likeliness that housing authorities will no longer be having any jurisdiction over this and will likely disappear after this. All right, let me take a sip of my coffee. Now, guys, I want to warn you about one thing. Do not drop any comments in here about how you didn't like that I was drinking coffee, talking about my cats. I'm going to remind everybody here, this is my channel. I'll do as I wish. I don't need anybody that's going to dictate my behavior or anything I do in these videos. I'm being very serious about that. If you run your mouth on my channel, I'll put your ass out, okay? I don't have time to deal with nonsense. I'm here to help people, but I don't owe anybody here an answer, ever, for any action that I take. Even if I were to have 10 beers and run through my office naked, I don't owe you a fucking explanation for anything. That's the reality of YouTube. I'm here as a service to people at no cost, and I'm not going to have anybody dictate any part of my behavior ever. Now, if you don't like some of the profanities I use, I understand, but I don't care. All right, moving on. Eugene Nickerson, my daughter has type 1 diabetes. Will I be able to keep my voucher? Diabetes, as far as I know, cannot be solved, and if it affects the long-term quality of her life, then yes. Charles gives me a crying kitty. I know. Look, guys, if you look, a lot of you think, look, there's a lot of white folks that get on these videos and act all proper, right? Look, I'm from South Louisiana. I'm telling you right now, if you don't think I won't talk shit back to you, I will. And I don't care about what YouTube thinks about it. I honestly don't. There's always a nature of professionalism. But you know what? I'd rather deliver things that are the truth. Okay, I'm not here to please anybody. And so it's tit for tat. It's an eye for an eye. You say something I'm not going to enjoy, and then I'm going to tell you something you're not going to enjoy. I'll just be clear about that. Most of you are not used to this kind of channel. But that's the thing about freedom of speech. I'm going to say exactly what I intend. And the main goal here is to tell you what's going to happen, how to prepare for it, and not to sugarcoat shit, okay? If you want that, there's lots of people. You got Bob and Sarah. They're talking. They got about 10 or 20 videos in Section 8. One day they're masters of fidget spinners. The next day they're experts at cupcakes. Today they want to play consultant, okay? There are lots of those channels that cater to people that wear their feelings on their shoulder. That won't happen here. You need to be a grown-up and you need to be able to handle the truth. If you can't handle the truth, then move on. I hate to lecture grown individuals, but I always get 5 or 10, lunatics that want to comment, and I think I'm not going to say anything. Of course I will. I'll say something that probably will piss you off. So, Jeanette Moray, well said. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And Psalm 91 goes on, thank you for your help. Again, generally, I'm trying to help people before we reach 2026. I've been in practice 25 years as a consultant at the federal level. I know what I'm doing. I can verbatim from virtually all federal code, policy, and procedure. I can't verbatim every disability law, but I'm very, very well acquainted. Enough to where I deal with hundreds of landlords, probably less than 100 law firms or attorneys, individual attorneys, a year. I've been published in media outlets many, many times. I'm not a joke. I'm not an entertainer. As far as I know, I'm the only actual real consultant on YouTube. The rest of these people just talking. Okay? You'd have the same odds you would if you hired a party clown for your child. They don't actually know anything other than to whole parrot things that my channel says. I see the same thing on TikTok. You got people that are 40, 50,000 people following an idiot that doesn't know a damn thing about federal law, giving out advice that can ultimately cause people to be homeless or lose everything they own. But some people just simply do not understand the gravity of running their mouth on social media. If you don't know what you're doing, you can endanger people, or you could end up advising them to do something that can critically damage their case. With that being said, I'm glad that we had an opportunity to speak today. If you want to reach out to my office, you can do through www.section 8 consulting. And yeah, I have a little twang, and sometimes it's hard to understand. Thank God for YouTube putting in captions in case I don't talk properly. Anybody has a problem with my Cajun twang, please do file a complaint. Or call 911 if you're having an emergency or having fits. They'll certainly help you out. If you do understand at least 80% of what I'm saying, you're going to be all right. We'll get through it. So we're going to continue to roll out policy and examine what's going to take place as we move closer to the next Congress and the next executive level bill that likely will be approved, and the transition from all Section 8 housing, all federal housing, being mandated down to the state, and how each state will handle those federal funds and begin to use their infrastructure to issue you guys vouchers. What you have will likely need to be traded over to the state level, where all of us is working at a furious pace to make sure we're ready and prepared to deal with all 50 states with a high emphasis on the top 10 largest. And the reason I'm saying largest states and most populous is because that's roughly 99% of the people that contact my office. I don't get that many calls from places like North Dakota and Maine. However, instrumentally, I will attempt to get the policy procedures for every single state in the nation. and we will adjust course as many times as required until the day Congress actually signs off. After that, it's going to be a firestorm, and there's going to be probably a lot of mistakes, a lot of errors, a lot of fraud. People will be trying all kinds of games, and it's going to be complex. And we're going to, we live and learn. This is the largest transition of housing. I would expect that roughly around 1.1 million or more people will likely become homeless or be on the way to homelessness after losing vouchers or not being able to qualify under the 2-year voucher, which means it'll be a lot like the pandemic. All of us may be on a 2-month wait just to even speak to me. It's going to be a wild couple of years. Under the pandemic, I was working 18 hours, and I only was able to service roughly 6% of the people contacting my office. At average right now, we're doing around 70 calls a day in my office and roughly 1,200 emails in a week. It's a lot. There's a lot of concern in the nation. So all we can do is prepare, take logical steps to address things. What you don't want to do is put your head in the sand and they go, oh, well, I thought that wasn't going to happen. Well, now you're homeless. Now you lose everything. Some of you face the potential of maybe of having a voucher and no longer having it anymore. And just because you qualify for a voucher don't mean they can't put you out of that voucher. The minute you don't meet the requirements, work requirements, or the requirements of the new 2-year voucher, they will put your ass out and you go up for eviction. And so that's not a safe deal. The only people safe in this right now are those families that have a composition that includes an individual that is 62, a veteran, or a person that is disabled between the ages of 1 day and for as long as you can potentially live. Those are the people. If you don't meet those requirements, you need to closely examine who and what you are, whether you're disabled or not. Maybe you need to go down to the homeless shelter, make friends with some veterans, maybe go down to the nursing home, make friends with some elderly. With your family composition, and you don't need to be directly related, you need somebody in the house. It's going to be one of those 3. As I mentioned in the last video, a lot of people have ignored the elderly. Now you need them. And to maintain and keep them in your home, you're going to treat them with respect because they walk. When they walk, you're screwed again. So it's time to start treating those that are disabled. Every time you guys park in those handicapped spots like an asshole, now you need them. And so it reminds you to treat your seniors, disabled, and veterans with more fucking respect. And a lot of you know what I'm talking about. It's up to me. I'd be a little bit more extreme than Donald Trump. I'd have your ass arrested for parking in a handicapped spot. I'll throw your ass in jail. It's despicable. You got 2 fucking legs and you do that? But, it's the world we live in. We're all human, and I suppose you can do what you want to do. But at what risk and what cost? So we need to examine all possibilities, and we need to keep an open and honest conversation as to how to keep moving in the system as it changes. And to prepare so you don't end up on a sidewalk, in a homeless shelter, or camping out in your car. Okay? For those that already have, then it's looking at whether or not you're going to continue to qualify under a state system and that you're meeting those requirements. And to be honest with you should be celebrating the end of housing authorities because it's like an old dirty prostitute, dealing with an old dirty prostitute, Housing authorities have never treated many of you very well. There are some housing authorities that had great employees and deserve awards, but many of them did not. And so ending the harassment and over-victimization, housing authorities gives me great delight. In ending this, I want to say I do not take any political positions. I am not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not independent. In fact, I'm not even voted for the lunch lady. Some of you will try to read deeply into my comments. And one day you guys, well, his comments seem to lean, he's probably a Trumper, or you'll say that I'm a Democrat. Honestly, just stop the bullshit, okay? It's a conflict of interest with me in all of this. I support whatever policies support you guys keeping you in housing for those that qualify purposely, for the right reason. And that means I have to support a little bit of every party. I don't vote for anybody. I'm not here to advocate for this administration or any other. To be frank with you, I have my own country here. It's called the 1 acre that I live on. I'm the kingdom, and my subjects are my 5 cats. I care what happens in my lawn. Okay? We vote around here on treats and things like that. I'm not worried about all this other shit going on in the White House. People there in Congress, the House, and the White House are going to do what they want to do, regardless of how you vote. The sooner you guys figure this shit out, the better that you'll end up. All right? People are they're going to do what they want to do. They live in their own world. Champagne, cigars, and political favors. I don't exist in that world, and most of you don't either. So you want to put your vote in, that's great. I don't support any of that. I just support whatever pieces of each different party that supports you. Okay, so that's my message to you. I support what works. And if part of the program works, gets rid of the housing authorities, I support that. If the other part means defunding Hava, then I don't support that. So I'm always in conflict in every video. You know? So, all right, guys, I've enjoyed talking with you. I think at 1 hour, it's time to close this down. I still have lots to do, and I'm sure a lot of my clients have called today, and they're probably wondering how long I'll sit in this video and when I'm going to call them back. So we will see you again. Today's Wednesday. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm going to make another. It's going to be at 10:30 a.m. The topic, if you want to find out what the topic of tomorrow's video is going to be, it'll probably be work requirements for 2-year vouchers. But I've not decided. But if you do want to know, I'll be publishing on a community page. So do bookmark our YouTube channel. Subscribe if you want to keep getting the videos as we get updates. Like the videos. I don't care if you like them. But if you find it a benefit, share it with people that may need that extra help, okay? Not everybody can afford to go out and deal with a consultant. These videos, let me tell you, I teach a lot in these videos. Many have used my videos to go out and get their own housing and vouchers without ever once picking up the phone and calling me. Now, I know not everybody has the same acuity or even IQ, but many have used my videos and went out there and got what they needed and emailed me later. I'm the last resort for serious issues or to help you to prevent homelessness. And unfortunately, we're going to see a lot of that through the transition of this program. And I'm going to try to do everything that I can, but I'm not going to do it like I did during the pandemic where I almost had a stroke. It got so bad that I went to an eye doctor one day and he looked in my eyes and you could tell I was at serious risk that day. And that was from working extreme hours. 50 years old. I'm definitely a little bit overweight, and I like caffeine. I'm not going to be working those hours, so I'll help as many as I can without the detriment of my own health. So maybe I have my own disability. It's called caffeine and working too much. All right, guys, I've enjoyed it. I hope those of you that I didn't get around to not answering or I skipped past you, it was nothing personal. These comments are like a stock market ticker, and they keep coming. I can't answer them all, nor do I desire to do so. I'm sure this video will garner probably thousands of comments. It may take weeks or months before I even get back. I'll do my best. I'll try to prioritize those that have questions that actually are meaningful and then just like the other ones, okay? Enjoy your day. We'll see you again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And I may be a little bit late. If I do, you're welcome to moan and bitch all you want in the comment section. It won't make me get in the video any quicker, okay? I'll always be who and what I am. And for that, all I can do is give you the truth. Enjoy talking with you. Goodbye for now.